The rain hammered against the windows of my small apartment, each drop like a tiny fist demanding entrance. I sat cross-legged on my worn sofa, surrounded by unpaid bills scattered like fallen leaves. My fingers trembled as I calculated the numbers again, hoping they'd somehow change. They didn't. "Damn it, Lena," I whispered to myself, pressing the heels of my palms against my tired eyes. 3 months behind on rent, medical bills piling up, and now this final notice from the hospital. Pay within 7 days or face collections. My father's heart surgery had saved his life but destroyed mine. I didn't regret it. How could I? But the weight of debt was crushing me one breath at a time. The waitressing job barely covered groceries, and the night shifts cleaning offices left my body aching and my mind numb. I reached for my phone, hesitating before dialing my father's number. He couldn't know how bad things had gotten. The stress would kill him faster than his heart condition. "Hey, sweetheart," his cheerful voice answered, instantly making my eyes well with tears. "Hi, Dad. Just checking in. How are you feeling today?" I forced lightness into my tone. "Better every day. The doctor says I'm recovering well. But what about you? You sound tired." I swallowed hard. "Just worked a double shift. Nothing I can't handle." The lie tasted bitter on my tongue, but I couldn't burden him with the truth. That I was drowning. That tomorrow I faced eviction. That I'd started selling my belongings one by one just to keep the electricity on. After reassuring him I was fine, another lie, I hung up and stared at the ceiling, wondering which god I'd offended to deserve this life. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Ms. Sullivan, I represent Mr. Alexander Vega. He wishes to discuss a matter of mutual benefit. Car waiting outside your building. Urgent." I frowned, peering through my rain-streaked window down to the street. A sleek black car idled at the curb, its windows tinted so dark they looked like portals to another dimension. I shivered involuntarily. Alexander Vega. The name sounded vaguely familiar. I racked my brain, then froze. Vega Investments, the firm that had bought my father's medical debt last week. My heart thundered in my chest. This couldn't be good. But what choice did I have? 20 minutes later, I sat in the back of the luxury sedan, trying not to fidget as we glided through the rain-soaked streets of the city. The driver hadn't spoken a word, and the privacy glass between us remained firmly closed. The car eventually pulled up to a towering skyscraper downtown, all glass and steel reaching toward the storm clouds. The driver opened my door, holding an umbrella over my head as he escorted me inside. The lobby gleamed with marble and soft lighting. A security guard nodded to my escort, and we were whisked up in a private elevator that required a key card. My stomach lurched as we ascended, either from the rapid rise or from the dread pooling in my gut. The elevator doors opened directly into a vast office. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the city spread below like a glittering carpet, rain streaking the glass in silvery rivulets. A massive desk dominated one end of the room, and behind it stood a man. The first thing I noticed was how still he was. Not the stillness of relaxation, but of a predator assessing its prey. He wore a charcoal suit that fit him perfectly, highlighting broad shoulders and a trim waist. His face remained in shadow, backlit by the stormy sky outside. "Ms. Sullivan," his voice was deep, with the faintest hint of an accent I couldn't place. "Please sit." I moved forward on unsteady legs, conscious of my rain-dampened hair and the coffee stain on my jacket I'd failed to remove. The chair I sank into was leather, butter soft, and probably worth more than my monthly rent. He remained standing, and I caught my first clear glimpse of his face as lightning flashed outside. Sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw darkened with 5 o'clock shadow, and eyes so dark they appeared black in this light. Handsome in a severe, unsmiling way that made my skin prickle with warning. "Do you know why you're here?" he asked, circling the desk with the languid grace of someone accustomed to having all the time in the world. I straightened my spine. "I assume it's about my father's medical bills. If you're looking for payment, I'm not." The words hung between us as he leaned against the desk, now just feet from where I sat. From this proximity, I caught his scent. Expensive cologne with notes of cedar and something darker, more primal. "Then what do you want from me?" My voice sounded smaller than I intended. His mouth curved into what might have been a smile on another man, but on him, it looked dangerous. I have a proposition for you, Ms. Sullivan. One that would eliminate your debt entirely. My breath caught. What kind of proposition? Marriage. The word hit me like a physical blow. I barked out a laugh of disbelief, then realized he wasn't joking. You can't be serious. I assure you I am. He moved closer, and I instinctively shrank back in my seat. It would be a mutually beneficial arrangement. Your debt, all of it, would disappear. Your father would receive the best medical care available. You would want for nothing. But why me? I whispered, my mind spinning. That doesn't concern you. His tone brooked no argument. What matters is the outcome. Financial security for you and your father, in exchange for becoming my wife. Wife? I repeated the word, as if it were in a foreign language. You mean in name only? His eyes traveled over me slowly, deliberately, leaving heat in their wake. We can discuss the details later. For now, you need only say yes. And if I say no? The question slipped out before I could stop it. Something cold flickered across his expression. Then, unfortunately, your father's debt falls due immediately. I believe the hospital is prepared to deny further treatment without payment. My blood turned to ice. This wasn't a proposition. It was blackmail. I thought of my father, finally recovering, finally hopeful. If his treatment stopped now. How long? I asked, my voice barely audible above the rain lashing the windows. How long would this marriage last? 1 year, he replied smoothly. After which, if you've fulfilled your part, you'll be generously compensated and free to go. A year of my life traded for my father's future. A year with this cold, intimidating stranger who looked at me like I was a puzzle to solve or an asset to acquire. I need time to think, I said. You have until tomorrow morning. He handed me a business card with a phone number written on the back in bold strokes. Call this number with your answer by 9 a.m. As if on cue, the elevator doors opened, and the driver who had brought me appeared. Our meeting was over. Alexander Vega didn't say goodbye, merely turned back to the rain-lashed windows as I was led away, as if I were already forgotten. That night, I barely slept. The proposition played on repeat in my mind, each iteration more absurd than the last. Marriage to a wealthy stranger to pay off my debts. It sounded like the plot of a bad novel. Yet the consequences of refusal were all too real. At 8:55 the next morning, I called the number, my heart in my throat. Ms. Sullivan, Alexander answered on the first ring, as if he'd been waiting by the phone. Yes, I said, the single word catching in my throat. My answer is yes. Silence stretched between us, then, good. A car will pick you up at noon. Pack whatever you wish to bring. Bring where? To your new home, of course. The line went dead before I could respond. What followed was a whirlwind. The sleek black car arrived precisely at noon. The driver loaded my 2 suitcases, all I had left worth keeping, into the trunk, while a stern-faced woman in a tailored suit introduced herself as Gloria, Mr. Vega's personal assistant. We'll be making several stops, she informed me, her eyes cataloging my appearance with obvious disapproval. Mr. Vega requires certain standards for the ceremony this evening. This evening? I choked. The wedding is today? Gloria's lips thinned. Mr. Vega doesn't believe in wasting time. I was whisked from one luxury boutique to another, measured and fitted for clothes I could never have afforded on my own. A wedding dress, sleek, modern, and alarmingly expensive, was selected without my input. A hairstylist transformed my dull brown locks into glossy waves, while a makeup artist applied products that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. By 6 o'clock, I stood in a private room at City Hall, staring at my reflection in disbelief. The woman looking back at me was beautiful but unrecognizable, a polished stranger in an ivory silk gown that hugged her curves. Gloria appeared at the door. It's time. My legs felt wooden as I followed her down a hallway to a small chamber where several people waited. A judge stood at a podium looking impatient. A few men in dark suits lined the walls. Security, I realized with a jolt. And there was Alexander Vega, even more imposing in a black tuxedo that emphasized his height and the breadth of his shoulders. His eyes widened fractionally when he saw me. the only indication that my transformation had any effect on him. The ceremony was brief and impersonal. We exchanged no personal vows, only the required legal phrases. When the judge pronounced us husband and wife, Alexander slid a platinum band onto my finger, its weight foreign and heavy. "You may kiss the bride," the judge said. I froze, unprepared for this part. Alexander's hand cupped my cheek, surprisingly warm against my skin. He leaned down slowly, giving me time to pull away, but I remained paralyzed. His lips brushed mine, gentle at first, then with unexpected heat. My traitor body responded, a flush spreading across my skin as his arm circled my waist, drawing me closer. The kiss ended as suddenly as it began. He released me, and I stumbled slightly, disoriented. Papers were signed, handshakes exchanged, and just like that, I was Mrs. Alexander Vega, wife to a man I'd known for less than 24 hours. Outside, a different car waited, a Rolls-Royce with darkened windows. Alexander held the door open for me, his face unreadable. "Where are we going?" I asked as we pulled away from the curb. "Home," he replied, not looking at me. We rode in silence through the city and then beyond, into the wealthy suburbs where houses gave way to estates hidden behind tall gates and security systems. Finally, we turned onto a private drive that wound through manicured grounds before revealing a sprawling mansion that looked like it belonged in a different century. 2 men in suits stood at attention as we approached the main entrance. They nodded deferentially to Alexander, but eyed me with undisguised curiosity. "Welcome home, Mrs. Vega," one said, opening the massive front door. I stepped into my new prison, wondering what I'd gotten myself into and how much it would cost me in the end. As the door closed behind us with a heavy thud, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd made a terrible mistake, one I would soon regret. The interior of the mansion stole my breath. Soaring ceilings with intricate moldings, marble floors that echoed with our footsteps, artwork that belonged in museums rather than a private residence. Everything spoke of old money and power. "Your home is impressive," I managed, my voice small in the vast entrance hall. Alexander's mouth twitched. "Our home," he corrected, though the words held no warmth. He gestured to an older woman approaching us, her silver hair pulled back in a severe bun. "This is Mrs. Abernathy, the housekeeper. She'll show you to your rooms." "Rooms? Plural?" I asked, confused. His dark eyes flickered to mine. "Did you expect we would share a bedroom, Elena?" The way he said my name sent an involuntary shiver down my spine. "I didn't know what to expect," I admitted. "This isn't exactly a conventional marriage." "No," he agreed, "it isn't." He checked his watch, a timepiece that probably cost more than a year of my previous rent. "I have business to attend to. Mrs. Abernathy will see that you're settled. We'll discuss the arrangements over dinner. 8 o'clock. Before I could respond, he turned and strode away, disappearing down a corridor. 3 men I hadn't noticed before followed him silently, their postures alert, hands hovering near the bulges in their jackets that I suddenly realized were weapons. My stomach clenched. What kind of businessman needed armed guards in his own home? "Mrs. Vega?" Mrs. Abernathy's voice pulled me back to the present. "If you'll follow me." She led me up a grand staircase to the east wing of the house. We passed countless doors before stopping at one at the end of a long hallway. "You're sweet," she said, pushing open the double doors. I stepped into a space larger than my entire apartment. A sitting room with plush sofas and a fireplace opened into a bedroom dominated by a 4-poster bed draped in cream silk. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked manicured gardens and, in the distance, a glittering pool. "The bathroom is through there," Mrs. Abernathy continued, pointing to another door. "Your closet has been stocked with a preliminary wardrobe. Mr. Vega's personal shopper will visit tomorrow for additional selections." I wandered to the closet, a room in itself, and gasped at the racks of clothing, all in my size, all with designer labels I recognized but had never dreamed of owning. "This is too much," I whispered. "Mr. Vega is very particular about appearances," she replied, her tone neutral. "Dinner is served promptly at 8 in the main dining room. Thomas will escort you down at 7:50. With that, she left me alone in my gilded cage. I spent the next hour exploring my suite, running my fingers over luxurious fabrics, testing the softness of the bed, marveling at the bathroom with its sunken tub and shower large enough for 4 people. Everything was beautiful, perfect, and utterly impersonal, like a high-end hotel room rather than someone's home. At precisely 7:50, a knock at the door announced Thomas, a young man in a crisp uniform who led me silently through the maze-like corridors of the mansion to the dining room. Alexander already sat at the head of a table that could easily seat 20, though only 2 places were set. He stood as I entered, his gaze sweeping over me. I'd changed into a simple navy dress I'd found in the closet, hoping it was appropriate. "The dress suits you," he said, indicating that I should take the seat to his right, "though we'll need to complete your wardrobe soon." "The closet is already full," I pointed out, as a server appeared silently to fill my wine glass. "Those are merely essentials." He took a sip of his wine, watching me over the rim of his glass. "You're my wife now. You'll need to look the part." The word wife sounded strange coming from his lips. A server placed the first course before us, something delicate and beautifully arranged that I couldn't identify. "I think it's time we discussed the terms of our arrangement," Alexander said, his tone businesslike. I set down my fork. "Yes. I'd like to know exactly what I've gotten myself into. It's quite simple. For the next year, you will live here as my wife. You'll accompany me to social and business functions when required. You'll maintain the appearance of a devoted spouse." His eyes locked with mine. "In return, your father's medical bills are paid in full. He's been transferred to the private wing of Memorial Hospital, where he'll receive the best care available. Upon completion of our year together, you'll receive a settlement of $2 million. I nearly choked on my wine. $2 million? A slight smile crossed his face at my reaction. "Consider it compensation for your time." "And what do you expect from me as your wife?" I asked, the question that had been burning in my mind since his proposition. His eyes darkened. "If you're asking whether this will be a marriage in the complete sense, the answer is yes, eventually. But I won't force you, Elena. When it happens, it will be because you come to me willingly." Heat flooded my cheeks at his directness. "And if that never happens, it will." The certainty in his voice was unnerving. "But in the meantime, there are rules you must follow." "Rules," I repeated flatly. "You don't leave the estate without security. You don't speak to the press. You don't discuss our arrangement with anyone, including your father. As far as the world is concerned, ours is a whirlwind romance that led to marriage. My father will never believe that. He already does." Alexander's expression remained impassive at my shocked look. "I visited him this afternoon to introduce myself as his new son-in-law. He was quite moved by the story of how we met when I anonymously paid his medical bills, how you were so overcome with gratitude that you agreed to dinner, and how we've been inseparable since." Anger flared in my chest. "You lied to him." "I gave him a story he could be happy about," Alexander corrected. "Would you rather I told him the truth? That his daughter sold herself to pay his debts?" The words stung like a slap. "I didn't sell myself," I whispered fiercely. "I made a business arrangement. Call it what you will." He signaled the server to clear our plates. "The story stands. Your father was delighted, by the way. Said he's never seen you look so happy as you did in the photos." "Photos?" He pulled out his phone, showing me a series of images. Alexander and me at the ceremony, smiling at each other, looking for all the world like a couple in love. I didn't remember these being taken. "How did you—" "Technology is a wonderful thing," he said, tucking the phone away. "The pictures have already been sent to a few select society columnists. By morning, our romance will be the talk of the city." I stared at him, a chill spreading through me despite the room's comfortable temperature. "You've thought of everything." "I always do." His expression softened marginally. "This doesn't have to be unpleasant, Elena. You'll want for nothing here. Your father will receive the best care. And when our year is up, you'll be a wealthy woman." A year suddenly seemed like an eternity. "And what do you get out of this?" Something flickered in his eyes, an emotion I couldn't identify. "I have my reasons." The rest of dinner passed in uncomfortable silence. I picked at my food, appetite gone, while Alexander fielded calls and texts, speaking occasionally in a language I didn't recognize. Spanish, perhaps, but with an accent I couldn't place. After dessert, which I barely touched, He rose from the table. I have work to attend to. Feel free to explore the house, though some areas are restricted. Staff will direct you. When will I see my father? Tomorrow, if you wish. I'll have the car ready at 10. I nodded, oddly grateful for this small concession. He paused, studying me as if trying to solve a puzzle. Good night, Elena. Good night, Alexander. His name felt strange on my tongue, intimate in a way that made me uncomfortable. After he left, I did explore, wandering the endless corridors of my new prison. Everywhere I went, I noticed security cameras in discreet corners and men in suits who pretended not to watch me. The library caught my interest, walls of books reaching to the ceiling, comfortable chairs by a fireplace, a peaceful sanctuary. I selected a novel at random and curled up in a chair, trying to lose myself in fiction rather than contemplate the bizarre reality of my situation. I must have dozed off, because I woke to find a blanket draped over me and the fire stoked. The clock on the mantel showed it was past midnight. As I made my way back to my suite, the house was silent, except for the occasional murmur of voices from behind closed doors. Turning a corner, I nearly collided with a man I hadn't seen before, tall, with a jagged scar running from his temple to his jaw. "Excuse me," I said, stepping back. He didn't move, blocking my path as his eyes raked over me with unsettling intensity. "So you're the boss's new wife," he said, his tone making the words sound dirty. "Interesting choice." I lifted my chin. "I'm trying to find my way back to my room." "I bet you are." He stepped closer, and I caught the scent of whiskey on his breath. What did you do to catch his eye, I wonder? Must be something special. My heart hammered against my ribs, but I refused to show fear. "Please move aside." His hand shot out, fingers wrapping around my wrist. "Not yet. I'm curious what all the fuss is about." "Dante." The single word cut through the air like a blade. We both turned to see Alexander standing at the end of the hallway, his posture rigid, face carved from stone. The man, Dante, immediately released my wrist, stepping back. "Boss, I was just introducing myself to your— Go to my office, now." Each word was measured, controlled, but I sensed a rage beneath them that made my skin prickle with warning. Dante's face drained of color. He nodded once and hurried away, giving Alexander a wide berth as he passed. Alexander's eyes found mine, assessing. "Did he hurt you?" I rubbed my wrist. "No." He closed the distance between us with long strides, taking my hand and examining the reddened skin where Dante's fingers had gripped. His touch was gentle, at odds with the cold fury in his eyes. "This won't happen again," he said, and I couldn't tell if it was a promise or a threat. "I'll have someone escort you back to your room." "That's not necessary," I began. But he'd already pulled out his phone, speaking rapid instructions to someone on the other end. Within moments, Mrs. Abernathy appeared, her expression concerned. "This way, Mrs. Vega." As I followed her, I glanced back to see Alexander still watching me, his face unreadable in the shadowed hallway. Back in my suite, I showered and changed into silk pajamas I found in a drawer. Despite the luxury of my surroundings, sleep eluded me. I kept replaying the hallway incident, the look in Alexander's eyes when he saw Dante holding my wrist. It wasn't just anger I'd seen there. It was possession. Sleep came eventually, though it was fitful and filled with dreams of dark corridors and watching eyes. I woke to sunlight streaming through windows I'd forgotten to close, and the disorienting realization that yesterday hadn't been a nightmare. I was actually married to Alexander Vega, living in his mansion, bound by a contract disguised as matrimony. A soft knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. A young woman entered carrying a tray. "Good morning, Mrs. Vega. I'm Sophie, your personal assistant." She set the tray on a small table by the window. "Mr. Vega thought you might prefer breakfast in your room today." The mention of his name sent an involuntary shiver down my spine. "Thank you," I managed, wrapping my robe tighter around me. "What time is it?" "Just after 8. You have an appointment with the stylist at 9, and Mr. Vega has arranged for you to visit your father at the hospital at noon." Sophie moved efficiently around the room, opening curtains and retrieving clothes from the closet. "Will you need anything else?" I glanced at the tray. Fresh fruit, pastries, coffee in a silver pot. No, this is fine. Thank you. After she left, I picked at the food, my appetite diminished by anxiety. The stylist appointment made me uneasy, another reminder that in Alexander's world, I was something to be molded and displayed. The stylist turned out to be a whirlwind of a woman named Vivienne, who spoke with a French accent and treated me like a mannequin, measuring and draping fabrics, making notes on a tablet as she circled me. Mr. Vega was very specific about your wardrobe, she said, holding up swatches of silk against my skin. He wants elegance, sophistication. Nothing too revealing, but everything must flatter your figure. I bristled at the thought of Alexander dictating my clothing. Don't I get any say? Vivian's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose. Of course, Mrs. Vega, within parameters. By 11:30, I'd been fitted for more clothes than I could wear in a month. My opinions considered but ultimately secondary to Vivian's vision and Alexander's parameters. As promised, a car was waiting at noon to take me to the hospital. 2 security men accompanied me, one driving, one in the passenger seat, both silent and watchful. Memorial Hospital's private wing was a revelation, more like a luxury hotel than a medical facility. My father had a spacious room with views of the city, a private nurse, and amenities I'd never seen in a hospital before. His face lit up when he saw me. There's my girl. He looked healthier than I'd seen him in months, his color good, his smile genuine. I hugged him, careful of the IV line in his arm. How are you feeling? Better than I have in years, he said, gesturing for me to sit on the edge of the bed. This place is incredible, Lena. The doctors here have me on a new treatment that's working wonders. Relief flooded me. At least this part of the bargain was real. Alexander had kept his word about my father's care. And you, my father continued, his eyes twinkling. Mrs. Vega now, I can hardly believe it. Your Alexander came to see me yesterday. Quite a man you've found. The knot in my stomach tightened. It all happened so fast, I said, which wasn't a lie. Love is like that sometimes. He patted my hand. I admit I was worried at first. You never mentioned him, and then suddenly you're married, but seeing you two together in those photos, the way he looks at you, he smiled. Well, a father can tell these things. Guilt pressed on my chest. My father had always been able to read me like a book, but now I was deceiving him, allowing him to believe in a love story that was nothing more than a business transaction. He's taking good care of me, I said carefully. I should hope so. And don't think I don't know what he did with my medical bills. Dad's eyes grew serious. He told me not to mention it, said you'd be embarrassed, but Lena, you should have told me how bad things were. I swallowed hard. I didn't want you to worry. That's my job, not yours. He squeezed my hand. But it's all sorted now, and I get a son-in-law in the bargain. When you bring children into the world, you never imagine who they'll end up with, but I have to say, I couldn't be happier. The mention of children sent a jolt through me. That wasn't part of our arrangement, was it? I realized with a chill that I didn't actually know what Alexander might expect beyond the year we'd agreed upon. I stayed with my father for nearly 2 hours, listening to him talk about his treatment and avoiding questions about my whirlwind romance. When it was time to leave, he hugged me tightly. Be happy, Lena, he whispered. That's all I've ever wanted for you. I blinked back tears. I'm trying, Dad. The security men were waiting outside the door. As we walked toward the elevator, I noticed a different atmosphere in the hospital. Staff straightening as we passed, exchanging glances, some looking nervous. I caught whispered fragments, Vega's wife, and keep your distance. That made no sense to me. In the car, I stared out the window, lost in thought. What exactly had I married into? Alexander was clearly wealthy and powerful, but there was something else. Something in the way people reacted to his name. The armed security. The midnight conversations behind closed doors. Back at the mansion, I found Alexander in the library, standing by the window with his back to the door. He turned at the sound of my footsteps, his expression softening almost imperceptibly. How is your father? He asked. Much better. I hesitated, then added, Thank you. For his care. He inclined his head slightly. I keep my promises, Elena. I'm beginning to see that. I moved further into the room, running my fingers along the spines of books on a nearby shelf. I'm also beginning to wonder exactly what kind of businessman needs the level of security you maintain. Alexander's eyes narrowed, the successful kind. People at the hospital were afraid when they heard your name, I pressed. Why is that? Respect and fear often look similar, he replied, moving to pour amber liquid from a crystal decanter into 2 glasses. He offered one to me. Perhaps they simply respect my influence. I accepted the glass but didn't drink. Or perhaps they fear it. A smile ghosted across his lips. Perceptive. Good. He sipped his drink. There will be an event tomorrow evening. A fundraiser. You'll attend as my wife. The abrupt change of subject didn't escape my notice. What kind of fundraiser? The kind where wealthy people donate money to feel better about themselves. His tone was sardonic. You'll find appropriate attire in your closet tomorrow. Gloria will brief you on who's who. I set down my untouched drink. Is this how our year will be? You giving orders and expecting obedience? Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. Would you prefer I consult you on every decision? Ask your permission to take you places, buy you things, introduce you to my associates? I'd prefer to be treated as a partner, not a possession. He moved closer. The scent of his cologne, woody and masculine, enveloping me. But you are a possession, Elena. One I've paid for quite handsomely. His voice dropped lower, though I hope in time you'll be much more. My heart hammered against my ribs. And if I refused to play along? Alexander's hand came up to brush a strand of hair from my face. His touch light, but sending electricity through my veins. You won't. You seem very certain. I am. His eyes held mine. Because underneath that defiance, you're curious. About me, about this life. His thumb traced my lower lip, and to my shame, I didn't pull away. And about what it would be like between us. Heat flooded my body, and I stepped back, needing distance. You're wrong. His knowing smile told me he didn't believe me. We'll see. I fled the library, his soft chuckle following me down the hallway. That evening, I avoided dinner, asking for a tray in my room instead. I needed space to think, to remind myself that this marriage was a contract, not a romance. Alexander's touch, his confidence, his intensity, they affected me in ways I wasn't prepared for, and that made him dangerous. The next morning brought the promised gown for the fundraiser, a midnight blue creation with a plunging back and subtle sparkle that caught the light when I moved. Jewelry appeared as well, diamond earrings and a matching bracelet that probably cost more than most people's cars. Gloria arrived mid-afternoon to brief me, her tablet filled with photos and notes. These are the key players tonight, she explained, showing me images of elegant couples. Senator and Mrs. Collins, major donors, friends of Mr. Vega, the Blackwoods, old money, banking, Judge and Mrs. Harmon, useful allies. I listened carefully, trying to memorize names and relationships, aware that my performance tonight would reflect on Alexander. Not that I cared what people thought of him, I told myself, but my father's care, and my eventual freedom, depended on maintaining this charade. One more thing, Gloria said as she prepared to leave. Stay close to Mr. Vega this evening. Don't wander off alone, and don't accept drinks from anyone but him or the staff he points out. Her warning raised fresh alarms. Why? Is there something I should be worried about? Gloria's expression remained neutral. It's simply protocol for security purposes. When she left, I sat on the edge of my bed, the beautiful dress laid out beside me, and considered what I knew, and didn't know, about the man I'd married. Legitimate businessmen didn't typically need armed guards or warn their wives about accepting drinks from strangers. They didn't inspire fear with just their name. A horrible suspicion began forming in my mind, pieces clicking together, the security, the midnight meetings, the deference tinged with fear I'd witnessed. My thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. A young woman entered to do my hair and makeup, transforming me into a sophisticated version of myself I hardly recognized. By the time she finished, I looked like I belonged in Alexander's world. Polished, elegant, expensive. I was putting on the diamond earrings when Alexander appeared in the doorway of my bedroom, his reflection catching in my mirror. He wore a tuxedo that fit him perfectly, emphasizing his broad shoulders and lean waist. His dark hair was styled back from his forehead, highlighting the sharp angles of his face. "You look beautiful," he said, his eyes traveling over me with undisguised appreciation. I turned to face him. "Thank you." He crossed the room and opened a velvet box I hadn't noticed him carrying. Inside lay a diamond necklace that caught the light like captured stars. "May I?" he asked. I nodded wordlessly, turning so he could fasten it around my neck. His fingers brushed my skin, lingering longer than necessary, and I suppressed a shiver. "Perfect," he murmured, his breath warm against my ear. In the mirror, we looked like we belonged together, both dark-haired, both dressed in midnight blue, both wearing expressions that revealed nothing of our true thoughts. "Before we go," I said, gathering my courage, "I need to ask you something." His eyes met mine in the mirror. "Yes?" "What exactly do you do, Alexander? What kind of business requires armed guards and inspires fear in everyone who hears your name?" For a long moment he was silent, his expression unreadable. Then he turned me to face him, his hands resting lightly on my shoulders. "You're an intelligent woman, Elena," he said quietly. "I think you've already figured it out." My heart raced. "I need to hear you say it." His dark eyes held mine, challenging, measuring. "And if you don't like the answer, what then?" The truth hit me with crystal clarity. My suspicions were correct. "You're not just a businessman," I whispered. "You're someone who gets what he wants," he interrupted smoothly, "by whatever means necessary." His thumb caressed the pulse point at my throat. "Now, shall we go? Our guests are waiting." And with that non-answer that told me everything, he offered his arm, leaving me no choice but to take it and step into the lion's den. The car ride to the fundraiser was silent, tension stretching between us like a taut wire. I stared out the window at the city lights, acutely aware of Alexander beside me, his cologne teasing my senses, his unspoken confession echoing in my mind. Mafia. The word I'd been afraid to say aloud hung in the air between us. I'd married a crime lord. The realization should have terrified me more than it did. Instead, I felt a strange, unsettling calm, as if pieces of a puzzle had finally locked into place, revealing the full picture of my situation. "You're quiet," Alexander observed, his voice breaking the silence. I turned to face him. "What would you like me to say?" His eyes, dark and unfathomable in the dim car interior, studied me. "Most women would be hysterical by now." "I'm not most women." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "No," he agreed. "You're not. It's why you're here." Before I could question what he meant, the car slowed to a stop in front of a grand hotel. Lights blazed from every window, and a red carpet stretched from the street to the entrance, flanked by photographers. Panic fluttered in my chest. "You didn't mention press. They're not here for us specifically," he said, though something in his tone made me doubt him. "Remember who you are tonight, Elena. Mrs. Alexander Vega. My wife, my partner. By my side by choice, not coercion." His hand covered mine, warm and steady. "Can you do that?" I lifted my chin. "I've already sold my soul. Acting the part should be easy." Something like hurt flickered across his features. So quickly I might have imagined it. Then his mask of cool control returned, and he nodded to the driver to open the door. The camera flashes were blinding. Alexander's arm circled my waist, holding me close to his side as we moved up the carpet. I plastered on a smile, heart pounding, conscious of his warmth against me, the subtle pressure of his hand guiding me. "Mr. Vega, over here," a photographer called. Alexander turned us smoothly, pulling me closer, his lips brushing my temple in a gesture that appeared affectionate to onlookers, but sent unwelcome heat through my body. "You're a natural," he murmured against my skin. Inside the hotel ballroom, the glamour intensified. Crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow over the gathering of the city's elite. Women dripped with jewels, men in tuxedos clustered in groups, champagne flutes in hand. A string quartet played in one corner, their music nearly lost beneath the din of conversation. Alexander's hand never left the small of my back as we moved through the crowd. People parted for him like water around a stone, conversations pausing, eyes following our progress, with a mixture of curiosity, admiration, and something darker, fear. "Alexander," A silver-haired man approached, his smile practiced. "And this must be the bride we've all heard about." "Senator Collins," Alexander acknowledged with a nod. "My wife, Elena. Elena, Senator James Collins." I extended my hand. "A pleasure, Senator." Collins's eyes assessed me with interest. "The pleasure is mine, Mrs. Vega. You've caught quite a prize. We both did," Alexander corrected smoothly, his arm tightening around my waist. The next hour passed in a blur of introductions and small talk. I smiled until my cheeks ached, laughed at jokes that weren't funny, and kept my arm linked through Alexander's as if we were truly the loving couple we pretended to be. Through it all, I observed. The deference shown to Alexander went beyond respect for wealth or position. People were careful around him, measuring their words, their body language betraying awareness that they were in the presence of someone dangerous. I also noticed the subtle hand signals between Alexander and the men I now recognized as his security team, positioned strategically around the room. Once, Alexander's expression hardened as he caught sight of someone across the ballroom, a lean man with silver at his temples who returned Alexander's stare with equal coldness before turning away. "Who is that?" I asked quietly. "Emilio Vasquez," Alexander replied, his voice low. "A business competitor." The way he said competitor left little doubt about the nature of their rivalry. "Come," he said, guiding me toward the bar. "I think we both need a drink." As we waited for our champagne, a statuesque blonde approached, her red gown cut low enough to draw every male eye in the vicinity. "Alexander," she purred, ignoring me completely as she leaned in to kiss his cheek. "It's been too long." Alexander stepped back subtly, maintaining a respectable distance. "Vanessa, you remember my wife, Elena?" The woman's smile didn't reach her eyes as she finally acknowledged me. "Of course, the new Mrs. Vega. Still a blushing bride, aren't you?" "Hardly blushing," I replied, matching her saccharine tone. "Though I appreciate your concern for my complexion." Alexander's lips twitched, though his expression remained neutral. Vanessa's eyes narrowed fractionally before she recovered. "Well, marriage certainly agrees with you, Alexander," she said, running a manicured finger down his lapel. "You look satisfied." The implication in her tone made my cheeks heat despite myself. This woman clearly had history with my husband, the kind that involved shared beds and intimate knowledge. "Excuse us, Vanessa," Alexander said, taking our champagne from the bartender. "I believe the senator is waiting to speak with us." He guided me away, his hand warm against my back. "Ex-girlfriend?" I asked when we were out of earshot. "Ex-something," he replied vaguely. "She seemed quite familiar with you." Alexander's eyes met mine, a hint of amusement in their depths. "Is that jealousy I detect, Mrs. Vega?" "Curiosity," I corrected. "I'd like to know how many more of your ex-somethings I should expect to encounter." He leaned closer, his breath warm against my ear. None that matter. Before I could respond, a commotion near the entrance drew our attention. The crowd parted as several men in dark suits entered, surrounding a distinguished-looking man in his 60s. "Vasquez," Alexander murmured, his posture stiffening almost imperceptibly. "And it seems he's brought reinforcements." The tension in the room was suddenly palpable. I watched as Vasquez made his way through the crowd, accepting greetings but clearly headed in our direction. "Alexander!" Alexander's security chief appeared at his shoulder, voice low with urgency. "We should move to a more secure position." Alexander shook his head slightly. "Not yet, Marco. It would look weak." His eyes found mine. "Elena, when I introduce you to Emilio, smile and be charming, but say as little as possible. Understand?" I nodded, my mouth dry. The danger in the room was suddenly very real, very present. Vasquez stopped a few feet away, his security keeping a respectful distance but remaining vigilant. Up close, I could see the sharp intelligence in his eyes as they flicked from Alexander to me and back. "Alexander?" he greeted, his accent subtle but distinct. I was surprised to receive an invitation to this event. "It's a charity fundraiser, Emilio," Alexander replied smoothly, "open to anyone willing to write a large enough check." He drew me closer. "My wife, Elena, Emilio Vasquez." I offered my hand and the smile Alexander had requested. "Mr. Vasquez." He took my fingers, holding them a beat longer than necessary. "A pleasure, Mrs. Vega. You are not what I expected when I heard Alexander had married." "Oh?" I kept my tone light. "And what did you expect?" Vasquez's eyes crinkled with genuine amusement. "Someone less spirited." He released my hand to look at Alexander. "You've chosen well. A strong wife is an asset in our line of work." "Elena is not involved in my business affairs," Alexander said, his voice carrying a warning. "Of course not." Vasquez's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Though she wears the role of a Don's wife with remarkable ease for a novice." Don. The word confirmed what I'd already guessed. My husband wasn't just involved in organized crime. He was a leader, a boss. "We should discuss the shipping matter," Vasquez continued. "Privately." Alexander's expression gave nothing away. "Another time, perhaps. Tonight is for charity, not business." Tension crackled between the two men. "As you wish," Vasquez finally conceded. "But soon, Alexander. The situation requires resolution." With a nod to me, he moved away, his security team closing ranks around him. "What was that about?" I asked once he was out of earshot. Alexander's jaw was tight. "Nothing you need to concern yourself with." I think I'm already concerned, considering I just met another crime boss at what's supposed to be a charity event. His eyes flashed. "Keep your voice down." "Or what?" I challenged, anger suddenly bubbling up. "Will you have me eliminated for knowing too much?" Alexander's hand circled my wrist, not painfully, but with unmistakable strength. "We're leaving," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. He led me through the crowd, pausing only to make brief farewells to key people, his public mask firmly in place while I seethed beside him. In the car, the silence was suffocating. Alexander sat rigid beside me, his profile sharp in the passing streetlights, tension radiating from him in waves. "You're angry," I finally said. "Yes." "Because I called you what you are?" He turned to me then, his eyes dark with barely controlled emotion. "Because you put yourself at risk." Vasquez was watching. Others were watching. If they sense discord between us, they'll see it as weakness. And weakness in my world is an invitation to attack. Fear curled in my stomach. Attack who? Me. Anyone associated with me. His hand found mine in the darkness, his grip almost painful. "Including your father." The threat was implicit but clear. If I didn't play my part convincingly, it wasn't just my safety at stake. "I didn't ask for this," I whispered. "Neither did I." His voice softened slightly. "But here we are." The rest of the ride passed in silence. Back at the mansion, Alexander escorted me to my suite, his hand at the small of my back a constant reminder of his presence. At my door, I turned to face him. "I want to see my father again tomorrow." "Of course," he said, studying me in the dim hallway light. "I'll arrange it." "Thank you." I started to turn away, but his hand caught my arm, stopping me. "Elena." His voice was different now, lower, almost hesitant. "Tonight, despite everything, you were magnificent." The compliment caught me off guard. I was just playing a part. "Were you?" His eyes searched mine, and I felt suddenly exposed, as if he could see through my defenses to the confusion beneath. Because there were moments when it didn't seem like acting. My heart raced traitorously. "It was all an act," I insisted, more to convince myself than him. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "If that's what you need to believe." He leaned forward slowly, deliberately, giving me time to pull away. I should have. Instead, I remained frozen as his lips brushed mine. Gentle at first, then more insistent as my treacherous body responded. Heat bloomed low in my belly as his arms encircled me, drawing me against the hard planes of his chest. I was the one who broke the kiss, stepping back, breathless and confused. "Good night, Alexander," I said, my voice unsteady. Something like satisfaction flickered in his eyes. "Sleep well, Elena." As I closed the door between us, I pressed my fingers to my lips, still feeling the imprint of his kiss, still tasting him on my tongue. That night, my dreams were filled with dark eyes and gentle hands that turned to steel. a gilded cage closing around me as I realized, too late, that I was falling for my captor. Morning came with unwelcome clarity. I stood at my bedroom window, watching rain streak the glass, reflecting on what had transpired the night before, the kiss, my reaction to it, the dangerous path I was treading. Alexander Vega was a crime lord, a man who inspired fear with just his name, a man who had essentially blackmailed me into marriage, a man I should despise, yet the memory of his lips on mine, his hands drawing me closer, sent heat through my body that had nothing to do with anger. This is Stockholm Syndrome, I muttered to myself. Nothing more. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. Sophie entered with my morning coffee and a garment bag. "Mr. Vega asked me to bring this," she said, hanging the bag in the closet. "He said you'd understand." Inside was a beautiful but subdued dress, perfect for a hospital visit, so he'd remembered my request to see my father. "The car will be ready whenever you are," Sophie added. "Security has been arranged." An hour later, I was in the back of the now familiar black sedan, 2 silent security men in the front seats. The city passed in a blur of rain-washed streets and gray buildings until we reached Memorial Hospital. My father was sitting up in bed when I arrived, color in his cheeks, a half-eaten lunch on the tray before him. "Lena!" His smile lit up the room. "Twice in 1 week. I'm a lucky man." I hugged him, breathing in the familiar scent of his aftershave. "How are you feeling?" "Better every day. The doctors are saying I might go home next week." He patted the bed beside him. "But enough about me. How's married life treating you?" I manufactured a smile. "It's an adjustment. I bet, going from that tiny apartment to a mansion. And Alexander, he's quite a force of nature, isn't he?" "That's one way to put it." I picked at a loose thread on my sleeve. "Dad, do you know what he does? For a living, I mean." My father's expression grew serious. "He's in import-export, real estate, finance, a lot of businesses, from what he told me." "And that's all you know?" He studied me carefully. "What are you really asking, Lena?" I hesitated, torn between wanting to protect my father and needing someone to confide in. "Nothing. Just curious." He clearly didn't believe me. "Listen, sweetheart. Men like Alexander, wealthy, powerful men, they often have complicated lives. Parts of their business that aren't for public discussion." My blood chilled. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I'm not naive." His voice dropped lower. "Your grandfather, my father, wasn't exactly a saint when it came to business dealings. I grew up around certain types of men. This was news to me. My grandfather had died when I was young, and my father rarely spoke of him. Are you telling me Grandpa was a criminal?" "I'm telling you that the line between legitimate and illegitimate business isn't always clear." He squeezed my hand. "What matters is how a man treats his family. Alexander clearly adores you, and he's been generous to me beyond measure, whatever else he might be involved in." He shrugged. I stared at my father in disbelief. "So, you're okay with this? With whatever he might be?" "I'm okay with the fact that my daughter is taken care of, that she's married to a man who looks at her like she's his whole world." He smiled gently. "The rest is between you and him." My father's words stayed with me during the quiet ride back to the mansion. Alexander looked at me like I was his whole world. That couldn't be right. Ours was a business arrangement, nothing more. Yet I couldn't deny the intensity in his gaze when he watched me, the possessiveness in his touch that went beyond mere ownership. Rain had given way to weak sunshine by the time we reached the estate. As the car pulled through the gates, I noticed unusual activity. Extra security personnel patrolling the grounds. A cluster of black SUVs parked near a side entrance. "What's going on?" I asked the driver. "Mr. Vega has business associates visiting," he replied, his tone neutral but tight. Inside, the mansion hummed with tension. Staff moved with heightened alertness, and armed men I didn't recognize stood at key positions. Mrs. Abernathy intercepted me in the foyer. "Mrs. Vega, Mr. Vega asks that you remain in your suite until dinner. He'll join you then. Is something wrong?" "Not at all," she said, though her eyes slid away from mine. "Just a security precaution." Escorted to my rooms, I felt the distinct sensation of being placed out of harm's way. Something was happening. Something Alexander didn't want me to witness. Hours passed, the house occasionally echoing with footsteps and muffled voices. I tried reading, tried watching television, but anxiety kept me pacing. Finally, as evening shadows lengthened across the floor, a knock came at my door. Alexander entered, and I immediately knew something had changed. His face was drawn, a small cut visible above his eyebrow, his knuckles raw. "What happened?" I asked, moving toward him without thinking. He caught my hand as I reached to touch his face. "It's nothing." "It's not nothing. You're hurt." I pulled free of his grasp, went to the bathroom for a first aid kit I'd spotted earlier. "Sit down." To my surprise, he obeyed, sinking onto the edge of my bed while I dampened a cloth. "The meeting with Vasquez didn't go well," he said as I cleaned the cut. It wasn't deep, but it had bled enough to stain his collar. Is that what this was about? The extra security keeping me upstairs? He nodded, wincing slightly as the antiseptic stung. "I didn't want you involved. I became involved the moment I married you," I pointed out, placing a small bandage over the cut. His eyes met mine, dark and unreadable. "Yes, you did." I moved back, creating distance between us. "Are you going to tell me what happened?" "Vasquez wanted territory that belongs to me." I declined. He decided to press the issue. Alexander's voice was matter-of-fact, as if describing a minor business disagreement rather than what I suspected had been a violent confrontation. And the issue has been resolved. Permanently. A chill ran through me at the implication. "Did you kill him?" Alexander's expression didn't change. "Would it matter if I had?" "Of course it would matter." I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold despite the room's warmth. "I'm living with you, married to you. If you're a murderer, if..." He stood, towering over me. "Elena, you've known what I am since last night. Did you think men like me, men like Vasquez, settled disagreements in court? With lawyers and judges?" I stepped back. "No, but..." "There is no but. This is who I am. This is the world you entered when you agreed to be my wife." His voice softened marginally, though I never intended for it to touch you. "Then why choose me?" I demanded, frustration boiling over. "Why drag a waitress with no connections to your world into this life? There must be dozens of women from families like yours, women who understand this madness." Something flickered in his eyes, an emotion I couldn't identify. "Is that what you think? That I chose you randomly, didn't you? You bought my father's medical debt, used it to force me into marriage." "Force you?" Alexander laughed, the sound harsh and without humor. "Elena, I've been watching you for months." My blood ran cold. "What?" "I first saw you at Caravello's restaurant. You were working a double shift, exhausted but still smiling, still kind to every customer." He moved closer, his eyes never leaving mine. "I came back the next night, and the next. I watched you work yourself to the bone, saw how you cared for your father, how you carried burdens no one should have to bear alone. I backed away until I hit the wall, unnerved by his revelation. You stalked me. I observed you," he corrected. "And what I saw fascinated me. Your strength, your loyalty, your fire, even when beaten down by circumstances. So yes, I acquired your father's medical debt. Yes, I orchestrated our meeting. But not to trap some random woman in a loveless marriage. Then why?" My voice trembled despite my effort to control it. Alexander closed the distance between us, one hand coming to rest against the wall beside my head, his body caging mine. "Because from the moment I saw you, I knew you were mine, and I wanted you to know it too." His confession should have terrified me. Instead, it sent a treacherous heat through my veins. "That's not love," I whispered. "It's obsession. Perhaps." His free hand came up to cup my cheek, his touch gentle despite the intensity in his eyes. "But can you honestly tell me you feel nothing for me? That when I kissed you last night, you didn't want more?" I couldn't lie. Not to him. Not to myself. "What I feel doesn't matter. This isn't real. It can't be real. Why not?" His thumb traced my lower lip, sending shivers down my spine. "Because you bought me," I said, the words bitter on my tongue. Like property. Alexander's expression hardened. I created the circumstances for us to meet. Yes, I gave you a choice. One you took. But I have never once treated you like property. The clothes, the jewelry, the rules, protection, he interrupted. Status befitting my wife. Security in a world more dangerous than you can imagine. His voice dropped lower. And if you were truly my property, Elena, do you think you'd still have your own rooms? Your own bed? Do you think I would have waited for you to come to me willingly? The implication hung between us, heavy with meaning. He was right. He could have demanded my body as part of our arrangement. Instead, he'd been patient, waiting for me to make the first move. I don't know what you want from me, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. Everything, he said simply. Your body. Yes. But also your trust, your loyalty, your heart. And if I can't give those things, his eyes searched mine, then when our year is over, you'll take your $2 million and walk away. I'll never contact you again. I stared at him, trying to reconcile the ruthless crime lord with the man before me now. Vulnerable in his own way, offering me a choice I never expected to have. Why me? I asked again, softer this time. Alexander's hand slid from my cheek to the nape of my neck, fingers tangling in my hair, because in a world full of people who bow to me out of fear or greed, you look me in the eye and challenge me, because when you smile, truly smile, it lights up spaces inside me I thought were long dead. His voice roughened. Because I don't want to possess you, Elena. I want to deserve you. His words undid me, breaking through the walls I'd built to protect myself. Without thinking, I rose on my tiptoes and pressed my lips to his. The kiss was different this time. Not gentle exploration, but raw hunger on both sides. Alexander's arms encircled me, lifting me against him as if I weighed nothing, my legs wrapping around his waist as he carried me to the bed. Are you sure? He asked, his voice strained with restraint. In answer, I pulled him down to me, losing myself in the heat of his mouth, the strength of his body pressing mine into the mattress. Clothes were discarded, skin against skin, every touch electric. When we finally came together, it wasn't just bodies joining, but something deeper, a connection that transcended our strange beginning. In that moment, I wasn't his possession or his contract bride, but his equal, his partner, taking as much as I gave. Afterward, lying in the circle of his arms, my head on his chest, I listened to the steady beat of his heart and tried to make sense of what had happened. Not just the physical act, but the emotional barriers that had crumbled. What are you thinking? Alexander asked, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on my bare shoulder. That I never expected this, I admitted. Any of it. He pressed a kiss to my temple. Regrets? I considered the question honestly. No, I finally said, but questions. Many questions. Ask them. I propped myself up to look at him. Your business. What exactly does it involve? Alexander's expression grew serious. Import-export, as your father said. Real estate, construction, security services. Some of it legitimate, some less so. Drugs? Weapons? No drugs, he said firmly. Never that. As for weapons, only to protect what's mine. And what is yours? His hand cupped my cheek. Territory, businesses, loyal men, and now you, if you choose to be. I digested this. Is it dangerous? Always? Sometimes. But I have safeguards in place. My enemies know that targeting those close to me means certain death. His eyes hardened momentarily, then softened as they returned to mine. Your father will always be protected. Whether you stay with me or not, that's a promise. I traced the line of his jaw, feeling the day's stubble beneath my fingertips. And us? What happens now? That depends on you. Alexander captured my hand, bringing it to his lips. Our arrangement stands, 1 year, after which you're free to go if you wish. But I'm hoping you'll consider a different arrangement altogether. What kind of arrangement? A real marriage. Not 1 year, but a lifetime. His eyes held mine, more vulnerable than I'd ever seen them. I want you by my side, Elena, not as a trophy or a possession, but as my partner, my equal, the mother of my children. My breath caught. Children? A smile touched his lips, not immediately, but yes. Eventually, a family of our own. The image was startlingly appealing. A home filled with dark-eyed children. Alexander as a father, protective and loving as he was with me. I don't know if I can be part of your world, I said honestly. The danger, the violence. I would keep that separate from our home life, he promised. And in time, perhaps, transition more of my business to legitimate enterprises. For you, for our family. I studied his face, looking for deception and finding none. You would do that? For you? Yes, his expression was solemn. I told you, Elena. From the moment I saw you, I knew you were meant to be mine. What I didn't expect was how quickly you would make me want to be worthy of you. Tears pricked at my eyes, unexpected and unwelcome. I think I'm falling in love with you, I whispered, the confession terrifying in its vulnerability. Alexander pulled me closer, his kiss tender this time, reverent. Then fall, he murmured against my lips. I'll catch you. 6 months later, I stood in the garden of our home, our real home, a new estate Alexander had built for us, away from the memories and shadows of his old life. Roses climbed trellises, their scent sweet in the summer air. My father sat nearby in a comfortable chair, fully recovered and contentedly reading the newspaper. Strong arms encircled me from behind, and I leaned back against Alexander's chest, his cheek resting against my hair. Happy? He asked. I turned in his embrace to face him. Yes. It was the truth. The past months had brought changes neither of us expected. True to his word, Alexander had begun transitioning his businesses toward legitimacy. There were still aspects of his world I didn't ask about, still meetings behind closed doors and men who called him Don. But the violence had receded, replaced by negotiation and compromise. Our marriage had changed too, deepening into something real and lasting. The woman who had once felt trapped in a gilded cage now held the keys herself, free to go or stay as she chose. I love you, Alexander said, the words no longer rare, but still treasured. I rose on my toes to kiss him. No longer the frightened, desperate woman who had entered his office in the rain all those months ago. Now I was his equal, his partner, his heart. And I love you, I replied, meaning it with every fiber of my being. As the sun set over our garden, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, I thought about the strange path that had brought us here, a forced marriage that had become a choice, a business arrangement transformed into love. He had once told me he wanted to deserve me. What he hadn't understood then, what perhaps we both had needed to learn, was that love wasn't about deserving or possessing. It was about choosing, every day, to be better together than we ever could be apart. And that choice, freely made, was worth everything.